All right, welcome to the Synchronicity Show. It is your host, Kevin Wathey, and today I have a very special guest that I actually got to sit down and be a guest on her podcast just a few short weeks ago. And my guest today is entrepreneur and business coach Alessia Citro. She is the host of the Corporate Dropout Podcast, a show that empowers and equips its listeners both energetically and tactically to leave the corporate grind and live the lives that they dream of. She left a successful career in tech, most recently at Google, to become an entrepreneur, coach, podcaster, and author. She is also a wife, mom, and a top network marketing leader. Alessia, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
It is my pleasure entirely, and I'm excited to see where the conversation kind of dives in today, or where we go based on the conversation we had before. So, to start and to keep it kind of open-ended so we can see what we get into, what right now is the biggest thing that's kind of lighting you up? If there was one thing that was like, that's where my attention is right now, what is that thing?
The first thing that came to my mind is always the answer that I go with, assuming it's appropriate, which in this case it was. Okay. Honestly, the thing that's lighting me up is living authentically without any type of mask. Not that I've ever been the type that, bullshits. I can swear on this show, right?
100%.
Okay, cool. I've never been a bullshitter at all. Like, I very much tell it like it is, but I've always felt like I needed to kind of fit into a particular box, right? Like, needing to work in a corporate job, needing to be the top salesperson, all this stuff. And now I'm just like living for the sake of living and doing what makes me happy and like showing up that way on the podcast, on social media, and hopefully inspiring other people to do the same, because it's been pretty liberating and fun. So that's what's really lighting me up right now.
What was the change? What was the shift? Why do you have now this new kind of ethos or mentality approaching life?
Well, I've been learning more about neuroscience lately, and I'm so fascinated by this. I think a big part of why I was staying inside the lines versus coloring outside of them is because, did you know, human beings, we're actually wired to not do anything that will make someone have a bad opinion of us or think that we're weird or whatever, because from an evolution standpoint, if we did that, we would get kicked out of the tribe and we would die, right? You can't survive in the wilderness that long by yourself. So people who have a hard time showing up, or the fear of what other people are going to think holding them back, know that is your brain trying to protect you, but this is like antiquated and we don't need it anymore. So just show up and see what happens. And I'm finding it's a positive feedback loop. So the more I do this, the more people are like, oh, like, fuck yeah, I love it. Like, I want to do that. And it just keeps you going and going. So it's been very liberating, so especially as the mom to a little daughter, because I want her to be able to show up as well
as herself and be radically authentic in what she does as well, rather than within the confines of how society says you're supposed to be, or along those lines.
Exactly.
To transition this now, because I'm really interested in how this new mentality has affected your life. Looking back and reflecting on your sales career, how did not showing up, quote, authentically either inhibit or set you up for success in terms of sales?
So I've always been authentic in terms of like working with clients, right? One of the things I am most proud of from a successful career is not going to president's clubs and all of that. It's that I can honestly say I never worked with a customer where I sold them something that wouldn't help them. Like, I'm very much of the opinion, this is just like the abundance mindset, that like my quota is not my customer's problem. I need to serve and add value, and like the money will come, right? But having said that, I was not in alignment. For a while I really felt like I was helping these business owners, helping them achieve goals, send their kids to college, pay off their house, whatever it was. And the longer my career went on, the more further removed I got from that small business owner. And I just couldn't feel the impact anymore. Felt so out of alignment as a result, and had like such horrible anxiety about it. Like the Sunday Scaries, it was like Sunday Scaries on steroids, pretty much, like depression, all of that. So now I'm back to helping people with coaching, the masterclass that I'm launching, which I'll tell you more about, and all of that. And it just feels so good. Like anxiety has, not entirely, because I'm a little type A, just a little, but the anxiety has almost completely disappeared, since I can just live my truth now and do what makes me happy versus what, my manager has to do. Like forecast call and team meetings, like those are trigger words for me. Like, no more of that.
So I want to kind of unpack how we got to this point today. So looking back on your life, growing up, what was it that you wanted to be?
Oh God. I think that I wanted to be a lawyer because, so my dad's an immigrant. He's from Italy. And anyone listening to this show that's the kid of an immigrant, you're going to resonate with what I'm about to say. Your two career options are doctor or lawyer. And I think I probably would have been a good doctor too, but I wasn't that into studying. Like I got good grades because it came pretty easy to me, but like medical school would have been a little intense. And I would rather, drink wine and have fun. So, so being a lawyer sounded like a great path because I've, always loved to argue. Luckily I've matured out of that, but I still love to persuade and, make my case. I think that's why I was good at sales. And I kind of like woke up from that fog of like, wait, I don't want to go to law school and have all this debt. And like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want that life. So, I know that that's not very inspiring. Like what kid wants to be a lawyer? But anyway, that's my boring answer.
We'll continue down that path. So that was where you had initially thought your life was going, but then you ended up at Google. How connect the dots for me here?
Oh man. Okay. I'm going to give you like the Cliff's Notes version because I've had a really twisted and non-linear career path. So I still thought I wanted to be a lawyer when I graduated from college. I went and worked for a lawyer who is a great customer of my parents' restaurant. Wonderful guy. I was a filing clerk there and I actually really liked it. I would go and watch him at trial and I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Just like spitting the facts and like nailing people to the wall, right? When they're trying to like get away with something. But then I just couldn't pull the trigger. I took the LSAT and I just couldn't apply to law school. Like I just couldn't do it. So fast forward, I get really bored living at home for a year after college. And it was like being in high school again. Like my dad was trying to implement the 10 p.m. curfew on me and I'm 23 at this point. I'm like, that's going to be a no for me, dog. So I buy a one-way ticket to Chicago. I take the first job I get, which was an administrative assistant at a private equity firm. I did that for 2 years, started working in bars while I was there to make more money, end up waiting on a guy that owns a PR firm, which is what I wanted to pivot into. And so serendipitously, or with synchronicity, you could say, he and I totally bonded while I was waiting on him. And he was like, I own a PR firm. Here's my card. Call me Monday. So I pivoted into that. And then I had this relationship end. I didn't have anything keeping me in Chicago anymore. So after 4 years, I moved back to California and reconnect with a sorority sister who's like, hey, I think you'd be really good in sales. I'm at this company. It's brand new startup. I think you'd kill it. You'd fit right in, like interview. So I did. And that's how I got into tech and sales. And then that company was the springboard to go to Salesforce. I was there for 4 years. I loved it, did really well there. And then I found out I probably would have never left Salesforce had it not been for the position I was in, potentially being phased out. So I started interviewing, had a mentor from Salesforce call me. He'd moved over to Google and he's like, hey, I'm hiring. I'm like, well, I'm looking for a job. So that's perfect. So I landed there and was there about 1.5 years and had this epiphany that it was time to be my own boss. No more forecasting calls.
Thanks I appreciate the Cliff Notes version of that. And it's interesting how you got into sales, because I feel like there's kind of two paths for people in sales. Either they fall into it, kind of like what happened with you, or they're this hyper competitive individual where they're able to thrive because sales is one of the only professions where your income is directly related to your skill level. Where the vast majority of other things, there's different things in here and limiters and everything, so on and so forth. But in sales, you set your own structure, you set your own rules. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a bit of that entrepreneurial gene in the sales environment. And then once maybe you started to feel that, then that was what drove you towards taking a step back and going out on your own?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, especially because what I was doing at Salesforce in particular, I was basically a business consultant that was solving business problems by selling them Salesforce products. So that's really how I got this passion for business. I mean, I think I naturally have had good business acumen just growing up with a dad that had his own business. But that kind of took it to the next level. But here's the thing, Kevin, I also fall into the hyper competitive category. I've really mellowed on that over the years, but I love to hustle. I love to see how much I can achieve. I'm actively working on detaching my worth from the level of achievement. That's been another thing lighting me up lately. But yeah, I loved sales because, the better I would get, the more money I would make. And that's pretty exciting.
So talk to me about sales then. What is the most out of the box thing that you've ever had to do in order to make a sale?
Okay. So I think that they would have done this deal anyway, but there was a company I was working with at Salesforce, Skydive San Diego. Okay. If anyone in the Southern California area is wanting to go skydiving, you need to go and see these guys. So they're all ex-Navy SEALs. When I was there, actually, we were just finalizing all the details on this deal. We were working with them. And the day that I was there on site, I think it was the Kuwaiti Special Forces team or something like that was skydiving and doing training with them. So they're pretty legit. They train Special Forces teams from all over the world. So, I come rolling in people can tell I'm pretty laid back, but I'm still rolling up in business attire, kind of buttoned up tech person. And I know that there's not video with this, so people can't see, but I'm kind of bougie, pretty basic, you know what I mean? And I think that they got quite a kick out of the thought of me jumping out of a plane. So they were like, if we do this, you're jumping. I'm like, okay. I'll say yes to almost anything. So there was a product specialist I was working this deal with, as well as an implementation partner. And the three of us jumped out of the plane as soon as it was inked. And I'm one and done. They told me, they were like, there's two types of people. You either jump and that's it, or you're addicted. And this is your new thing. So I was actually helping them to get repeat, marketing automation and all of that, if people jump to keep them informed of deals and whatnot. So pretty cool use case and amazing people that own that company.
I've heard the exact same thing about skydiving. It's you either go once and that's the end all be all, you're done, or you continue. I've gone twice. So I'm kind of in the limbo stage. I'm in the limbo stage right now. The reason I've only gone twice though is I had a friend who was in the Marines and he was like, of all of the accidents that I've ever heard of happening with someone skydiving, it's been on their third jump. And that's kind of scarred me a little bit. So I'm like, I'll do the first two. But the third one, I really have to be all right, this may be it moment.
Oh my God. Well, the other advice, anyone who's listening, if you have not gone skydiving, but would like to, the best advice I could give you is to jump first, because watching people literally bodies just falling out of a plane before me, I was doing the sign of the cross and oh, please God, what have I gotten myself into? Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. And I don't know if this happened to you too, but I was exhausted after. Me and the product specialist drove back up to Orange County after this jump. And we both were silent the whole ride. We were just so drained from.
You're so depleted from the adrenaline that you had coming from it.
Oh my, I don't even know how I drove home. It was yeah, I was a zombie after that, but it was super fun and I'm glad I did it, but never again.
So to segue from the exit from a plane to your exit from Google, what did that, see how I connected the dots on that one there?
I sure did.
What did that exit look like and what kind of prompted the leave from Google?
Kevin, you just connected some dots. That is such a good segue because a plane is also involved in me leaving Google. So the Cliffs Notes on this. Okay, so my husband and I, since we began dating, I think it was right after we were first engaged, we went to Maui together. And we were like, one day we are going to own property here. So this has been like a dream since we got together. And so that dream became reality in May of this year. We bought a condo that is super cute, Positive Latitude Maui, if you want to follow us on Instagram and, want to get that passive income going, right? Which actually hasn't happened. That's a whole other story, live and learn. New property manager, fuck the what. So that's going to be, on the up and up soon. But anyway, we're in Maui for like a week getting this place set up. I mean, you should have seen it. It was an absolute dump, like a dumpster fire. Now it's amazing. But like we worked our tails off for a week while we were there. But we, even though we were so tired and working so hard, we were just like on a different wavelength, like so grateful and attracting like all of these amazing people. I mean, every time we'd go out to eat, having these deep conversations with the servers and all of that. And then the one day we relax, we're at the pool. I'm getting to the point, I promise. The server walks up with a bottle of champagne. She's like, you won't believe what just happened. There's a couple here. They want to be anonymous. They sent you this bottle of champagne because they just love your vibe and energy, but like, don't, be loud about it because that couple over there, they're newlyweds, but they weren't giving off like the vibes that you So like stuff like that never happens to us. So the point of the story, or I guess, the punchline, we go to the airport to fly home and Jeff's got really great status with American and we end up getting upgraded to first class. The seats are not together though. And we're like, well, that's fine. We just spent a week together. We can be apart to not being coach. I'm not about the coach life, but I also don't want to pay for first class tickets. So I end up sitting next to this woman who I had just finished listening to a podcast that was all about leaving your corporate job. And I'm like, God, I gotta quit my job. Like it became so apparent while I was in Maui, like things were in alignment. I'm like, I gotta get out. And the flight attendant walks down the aisle. He's like, oh, what can I get for you to drink? Like right as the podcast ends. And I'm like praying for a sign. I said, oh, I'll take Tito's Soda Lime. And my seatmate, Jody, who we're still friends, by the way, she's like, oh, that's what I drink. Make it too. And anyway, we start chatting and she's like, I have to confess something. Like I told you I couldn't switch my seat, which is true. My daughters are sitting next to us, but I wouldn't have switched anyway, because I knew when you walked towards me, we were meant to sit together and that I needed to talk to you. Like that's a way to get someone's attention, right? So I was like, okay, well, what do you need to tell me? And she basically describes me to me. She's like, I'm a top network marketing leader. I love the company, the products, my team, but I just know I'm meant to do more and have a broader impact. And so since we've been sitting here, I've been working on a business plan. I'm creating a coaching and personal development company. Okay, so little does she know, a week before that, when I'm setting up the LLC for our rental property, I'm talking to the business lawyer and I'm like, hey, what would it be to create this LLC for a coaching and development company? Like, I want to start a podcast, write a book. Like, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but she's like, oh, just pay the filing fee. It's like a copy and paste for me. Like, no big deal. So literally a week before I created this LLC, she tells me this. I had just asked for a sign and I was like, oh my God, you're the sign I need to quit my job. She's like, I know I'm the sign. That's why I knew I needed to talk to you. And then we drank Tito's for 5.5 hours back to LA and we deplaned. And I told my husband that he goes, oh my God, you're drunk. I'm like, yeah, I am. And I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. And he was like, are you serious? Yep, I'm serious, babe. Like, I got it. I got it planned out. It's going to be great. And I did that. The next day I told my manager, yeah, I'm out of alignment, not living my purpose, not doing anyone any favor staying. So I'm going to finish out the quarter and then go on my way. And that's what happened. Pretty crazy. And I told this story on TikTok and it went viral, which I'm like, what the hell? Like, why didn't I do this sooner? This is really cool. But yeah, when the stars align, it's a really beautiful thing. And if you ask for the signs and you get it, you need to jump whether you're ready or not.
Out of the plane, both feet, and you need to go first without doing the whole cross moment.
Yes. But make sure you have a parachute to continue this analogy. Like if you're listening to this and you hate the job you're in, start socking away money right now. It'll last you 6 months. It's going to take you longer to make money than you think. And you don't want to, hurt yourself on the way down. So have the safety net.
So to transition then into now you're basically operating your own business. You're going into the business for yourself. there are a lot of people who come from a corporate world and start their own entrepreneurial journey, their own endeavor, whatever it ends up being, but they don't know how to work on a business without working in the business. So what has been your experience stepping into, rather than just creating a glorified new job for yourself, actually building a business around what it is that lights you up?
Oh, this is such a good question. To be honest, I think I'm still figuring it out. Like before we started recording, we were talking about, the different tasks that we manage for our businesses, right? And like, there's stuff that I'm doing that I should be paying someone else to do. So, but I have a hard time letting go, or it's something I really enjoy, but like someone else could do it. So I definitely think I'm still kind of figuring that out. But, I think just like having the overall strategy, like doing the things that are going to matter and add value and serve, and not being attached to how it's going to look, because what you think you are going to be offering that your audience wants, they might not want that. So be ready to like pivot and take the feedback and not get your feelings hurt. Like that's the other thing. You got to put a Teflon suit on when you do this.
What's been your biggest learning curve or learning moment, or in relation to the actual building of the business, that if you were to go back and do it over, you're like, oh, that makes total sense. I wish I would have known this prior to actually making that decision?
I think the thing no one really preps you for is, if you've been conditioned or programmed to be in a 9 to 5, pivoting out of that to entrepreneurship is like, it's pretty tough, right? Like I'm 3.5 months out into the corporate dropout life. I'm still trying to figure out like, what is my ideal schedule? So, and I can't find a planner out there that like fits all my needs. So I like made my own in Google Docs to like plan my week and plan my day. And that's helping. But I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you don't have anyone that you're accountable to anymore except yourself. So you have to have a way to measure what you're doing and where you're tracking, because no one else is going to do it for you. So I think I would have tried to be a bit more organized with my time, instead of just like, all right, well, today I need to do this and this and this. Like, no, like high level, not task oriented, if that makes sense.
It's kind of going back to the conversation we had prior on your podcast, was fixing the inputs so that the outputs fix themselves. So it's, you now know that you don't have the accountability, so to speak, of upper management or someone above you that's going to set your schedule for you. So you now need to fix the input to dictate what your output actually is. So if you don't, you show up and you say, today I'm going to do this. And there's no structure in that. There's no like 1% compounded day after day mentality. And what I've found personally, I've always been very organized in so many different areas of my life, more so now because I've been forced to add this structure. But I was at a conference this past weekend, and one of the things that I recognize with some of these people who are doing 7 and 8 figures a year as their own business owner, I was like, I'm super organized. I have all these SOPs. I have all these systems. And then I take a look at the other side of the coin and you're like, you have nothing.
I think systems too, people have a really hard time with it. I mean, I'm kind of like wired that way to like think about like, okay, efficiency. If something's inefficient, I literally can't deal with it. And if I don't have the power to fix it, like I have to see myself out, right? Like if there's not a cut and dry, like sales process or, automation flow, like it drives me insane, and I have to be able to like fix it and set that up. But I think a lot of people, like, that's a zone of genius for us. You more so even than me. Like you guys, when Kevin booked me on this show, the automation chain that kicked off, I was like, whoa, I got to step my game up. This is really
But see,
amazing.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I have currently in place. And that's like the tip of the iceberg when you see what is actually possible. And the crazy part of systemization as a business owner is that you're limited by your own creativity. That's it.
Yeah.
The only limit or ceiling you have on yourself is yourself, which is a fucking aha, like mind blown moment. Because when you recognize that, it's then like, okay, cool. Well, what don't I know, or what am I missing? And when you don't know what you don't know, and the systemization, going back to that kind of topic real quick, The biggest aha for me in that kind of mindset, in that range, was you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So you can say, today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but if you don't have a system in place that will actually ensure that you do that, you never will. And now you're not able to get that compounding effect time and again that actually then moves the needle for you and drives you into a position that you want to be. Because again, fix the inputs. You don't need to worry about where you're going because the inputs automatically get you there.
And you can just make your life so much easier by setting things up so that you're not doing the same tasks over and over. But you and I take for granted this skill because it's easy for us. This was something, how if you're really good at something, you just assume everyone's good at it. Like these are usually the things people have a hard time charging for because they feel guilty because it's so easy for them. Like they could do it in their sleep, right? What I figured out, actually, thanks to network marketing, is like, oh, not everyone is like good at technology and like setting things up. Like I had no idea that this was a zone of genius for me. And so, I do think if this is something that's just like way out of your league and you don't want to take the time to learn it, or it's going to cost you more to learn it than it would to pay somebody else to do it, like that's something to outsource for sure. And that'll pay dividends. Like the ROI on there is going to be instant.
Something I work with clients on that I have is a minimum working wage calculator for business owners. So just because you're not paying yourself an hourly doesn't mean you shouldn't know what your time is actually then worth. So the way it breaks down, you first have to do, I call it a transcendent time audit. You're basically breaking down, I think you commented on one of these posts the other day that I was talking about it. You break down your entire week into 20-minute increments. So from 8 to 8:20, I did X, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how productive was that? Boom, 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 boom. Then you have your average productivity score for each day and for the week, and then a cumulative score. You can then find out the places that you are being the least productive, seeing what you're doing in that time, and then if it doesn't fulfill you, or if it doesn't make sense that you need to do it, you either need to delete, delegate, or systemize it. That's kind of like the structure of it. Now, if you take that and you plug it into whatever your minimum working wage is, there's a calculator for it that we offer our clients, then you can see, okay, this is what I'm currently making, quote, per hour, per working hour. And then now we're going to multiply that by a factor of like 3 or 5, like 30% or 50% to get it to where we want to be. Because we always want to be growing. If you're not growing, you're going in the opposite direction. You're not staying stagnant. Now you go, okay, anything that is not this or higher, everything that is not this or lower, I need to now delegate, systemize, or delete. Anything that is that or higher, I need to now figure out a way to make more in order to then get to the point where I'm now delegating, systemizing, or deleting that from my day. So it's adding a SOP, so to speak, to the delegation process itself.
I love the idea of this, but I am kind of spontaneous. And I have ADHD, by the way. So the thought of like keeping track of all of that sounds so intimidating, but I definitely think I need to do that. Tell me about the gains people see when they do this. Like, sell me on it.
It's not as intimidating as you think it is, because it's something that you can, like, I know people who they don't want to use their phone, so they'll do it on a piece of paper and they'll set an alarm like on their watch or something, so that every 20 minutes, beep, beep, and you just write down what you did. And I'm talking like it can be as simple as like walk plus audiobook. So for that, and then, okay, now let's take this even deeper. You have a primary and secondary task. So you're 2x time hacking. The primary is the audiobook because that forces your attention. You need your attention on that in order to consume it. The walk, you don't necessarily need to have it. It's a secondary task. So now I would rate that as a higher on the productivity score than if you were just going for a walk or just listening to an audiobook. Now we can get real, and we can fine tune and even add more to that. But that's kind of the way it would look. But what I've seen with clients and with friends that I've had do this is you don't actually know where your time is going. Like, you take a step back and you're like, oh yeah, I did this today and this week and this week. And I'm like, yeah, but you're awake for 16 hours a day. What did you do the other 12? Oh, I actually spent 3 hours on social media. I was staring at a blank screen because I was just like refreshing my inbox. and I have these other apps open, and then I check the fridge 7 times, and like all of these other things that you don't realize that compound. And cool, when you do that once, it's a couple minutes. But when you do that over the course of a day repetitively, weeks, over months, over years, you don't realize like how much that actually takes a toll on your time commitment. If we break this down, 20 minutes a day over the span takes up 1 year of your life.
That's so crazy because I mean, and I'm guilty of this too. Like, how much time do we all waste? I mean, we'll use social media as an example, right? Like getting that dopamine hit, like how much time do we waste doing that? Have you read the book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson?
I have not, no.
I feel like you would love this book, although it's nothing you don't already know just based on what you shared with me. But he basically talks about how these like very small incremental changes compounded over time make huge, huge gains. So, okay. Well, Kevin, you sold me. I'm inspired to try doing this, even though I hate tracking stuff, but I know you need to. You have to measure it, right?
If you can't make database decisions on almost everything, now you're working from a place, yes, your gut and your intuition and intention behind it is great, but especially from a business owner perspective, you need to make database decisions that have statistical significance behind them. Because if you don't, what are you doing? You're not preparing yourself, so you're really setting yourself up for failure because you don't have the methodology or the mindset behind it, which is hard for so many people. And I get that. I understand that. But just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it.
And you know what? I think sometimes we say things are hard, and really it's just like the break in routine. It's just, it's not hard. It's just novel. Yeah. So it's uncomfortable until it's not.
Yeah. And you got to be willing to do something you've never done before in order to get to a new place. This was a huge, I was listening to a podcast with Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon. And he had this quote, and he said oh man, what was it? It was, I'm totally blanking on the quote right now. I had it just a second ago. That
happens to me all the time. Mom brain.
If you set goals only based on past experiences, you will only ever have what you've ever got. But if you set goals and expectations based on future wants and desires, you're always going to be elevating yourself and always going to be moving to a new level. But the problem is that you're always living in a place of uncertainty then, and you have to be okay with that. And
which can be scary for people.
That's the disconnect for most people, because the uncertainty is not comfortable unless you find a way to get comfortable in that, which there goes the cliche, like get comfortable being uncomfortable. But the reality behind that is if you can create routine in your life, that within the routine is ways for you to get uncomfortable, guess what? You've now fixed an input that allows prolonged and expedited growth.
So true. I remember my first tech job. This was a startup, and I was like the 25th employee in this office. And by the time I left, there were probably 600 people that worked in this location. So we were moving desks all the time. It was always amazing to me, Kevin. People would freak out every time they had to move their desk. And it's like, wait, why are you not used to this at this point, right? Like the only constants change. So I know that's kind of a silly example, but I've gotten to a point in my life now where I kind of thrive on the uncertainty and the new experience because it's fun for me. But that's a muscle that you need to build up and strengthen. That doesn't happen overnight.
100%. And I would challenge people to do more of that, because so I have a standing desk and I'll move this around so I'm in different areas. But another thing that I do frequently, probably once a month, if not more frequently, is I'll go stay at a hotel for a night or two and use it as like a working vacation, but it's because it's changing my surroundings. So I'm thinking differently, which then allows me to approach whatever's going on from a different perspective or a different view. I think there was a story, it was J.K. Rowling who wrote Harry Potter, right? J.K. Rowling. She ended up had, quote, writer's block, which she then booked herself a hotel room in Scotland, started writing, and then ended up prolonging that stay for weeks. And that's where she wrote like the vast majority of one or a few of the books itself. And it was that shift because it was, okay, I'm in a space that my brain and my body knows. So my subconscious is just falling into a groove. But when I then go
Yes.
outside of it to something that's new, like you go to a hotel, even if you've been to the hotel before, you're in a different room, you're in a different space. It's somewhat new. That's a refresh for your not only your subconscious, but your consciousness as well.
This is one of my favorite takeaways from Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about one space, one use. And he gives the example, which was very relevant to me. If you try to meditate at the desk where you work, that's probably not going well. Like you're probably thinking about all the things you have to do. You have to have literally a dedicated space where you meditate. Maybe it's like a corner of the room, but you can't do everything in the same spot. Like you have to switch it up. Yeah, I love that idea of getting a hotel room. I might have to do that.
It's fantastic, honestly, because it feels like a mental and physical reset because it's a new space. But then at the same time, you get so much done. I've had like insane moments of writing things and programs and books and scripts and things like that in hotel rooms that like a couple of years ago, my girlfriend at the time, we were in Hawaii and I literally just sat down and I would like wrote for like 2 days straight. She's like, we come to Hawaii to go on vacation, not so you can work. So I got to find the work-life balance between that. But it's that like inspiration from something new, something trivial that allows you to then open up and let things flow through you. Because when you try and force it, you're not doing anyone a favor. Get up, go for a walk, get in nature, move, and let that creative juice flow, then come back to it. There's no point in sitting there staring at a screen with this little cursor blinking in front of you. What's that going to do?
Totally. And actually something that you said too about Hawaii. So I found this out after I first shared the plane story on social media. Someone DM'd me and they were like, stuff like this happens in Hawaii a lot. Like, look it up. It's like a heart center of the world. So Haleakala volcano in Maui, I'm going to get the details of this kind of messed up, but apparently there's something about it that just enables creative juices to flow. So like I worked at Salesforce, right? Mark Benioff came up with the idea for Salesforce while he was swimming with dolphins in Hawaii or something. So if you need to get a creative project done, go book a flight. You can stay at our place. I'm going to plug it right now.
There we go. We'll link to it in the show notes of the episode too. But I might be booking it as well, so I can get some more time back on the islands.
Yes, do it.
So I got a final wrap up question for you here, and that is, how do you specifically create a work-life balance now that you are in charge of all things that you do?
Oh my gosh. So I posted something the other day on the Corporate Dropout Instagram, and it was like something about how the Sunday scaries are no more. And my husband like DMs me. He's like, yeah, you can't get the Sunday scaries when you work 7 days a week. I was like, oh, sick burn. So I am still figuring out the balance. But what I notice is like, now I can kind of work whenever. So like Jeff is traveling this week. So I'm working at night and I'm doing more stuff like for myself during the day. If he's home, I try to kind of keep it within the confines of like the 9 to 5, so to speak, so we can have family time. So I think it's just, as Mel Robbins says, be where your feet are. So like if you're in your office working, like work, don't be thinking about, oh, I wonder what my toddler's doing at school, or, oh, I wonder what's going on, social media or whatever. Like to really try to be present. And then alternatively, when you are, playing with your daughter or with your husband, like be present with them, try to not think about work. I know that's easier said than done, but one of the things that really helps me, Jeff's boss is actually the person I got this term from. He does this thing at the end of every week called mind erase. So I do this at the end of every day now. So what were the things that I didn't get to or that I need to do tomorrow? And that way it's not taking up computing space in my brain. I can just go be present and not be like, oh, I can't forget that I have to do that. So that's been a huge help. Such a simple thing, but it really has made a difference.
I love that. Be where your feet are, because I am so bad at that a lot of the times where I'll be somewhere, but my mind is completely elsewhere. And I do what you say. Like I think I have my asana board I have it on a shortcut on my phone. So when anything pops up, I'm just like, put it down and then we're good to go. But then once I put it down, now it's like the subconscious starts going to work for it. So I need to find a way but I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. Like my brain doesn't turn off. I'm glad it doesn't, which is awesome. But at the same time, it's like, all right, I need to pull myself back, enjoy this present moment rather than trying to foreshadow or forecast something else.
Totally. It's hard. And I mean, I get the vibe from you too. Like if we were local, I feel like you and I would hang out and like be friends. Like we're both, I can tell, like intense, like very driven people and like highly creative. I think it's really hard for us to not be thinking about other things when we're wherever we are. But I think building the awareness around it's the first thing, right? And like meditation, I'm not a big meditator because my brain's always going, which is why I need to be a bigger meditator. But like even just taking a few minutes every day has really kind of enabled me to have the pause and the awareness around the stuff that I need to improve.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's the awareness. And number two is that it is your superpower in a sense. It's a blessing. So don't think of it as a negative. Let that flow through you, work for you kind of thing.
Totally. Yep. Reframe.
Very cool. Well, Alessia, I got a couple rapid fire questions for you to wrap this up right here.
Oh, all right. Let's go.
First one being, attribute your success to one specific thing.
Oh, man. I don't know if this is a good answer, but I honestly just feel like it's in my blood. Like I would attribute it ancestrally. Like I've got a long line of entrepreneurs and I feel like I am just channeling all the lessons that they learned and just a little too driven, but I wouldn't change it.
What's the biggest mistake you've ever made and what did you learn from it?
Oh man. Okay. This is a timely question. Basically anytime I have ever done something because I saw a dollar sign, it has not gone well and it's caused me a lot of anxiety or depression or whatever it might be. So now, like, I don't focus on, I mean, I love money and I have a great money mindset that I'm always working on improving, by the way, because it was not always good, but I never do things for the intent of just making money. It's like, what can I do along the way? Is this aligned with me and my values? So that's the biggest mistake I've made is doing things just for cash.
The reframe there, I heard this in a Wayne Dwyer documentary. It's not, money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil. Because you can use money as a tool and recognize what it's for, but as soon as you love that more than anything else, there's your problem.
Totally. And the universe will teach you that lesson as many times as you need before you finally get it.
Yeah. If you could spend 1 hour with someone past, present, or future, who would it be?
The first person who popped into my mind was Tony Robbins.
I'm going to UPW next month.
I was supposed to go right around when I started Google, but I joined a week before COVID hit. So It didn't happen.
I'm stoked.
I can't wait to hear how it goes.
I'll let you know. I'm taking my whole team. It's our first, because they're all remote. So it's our first time having the whole team in one place in person. And I have never been to a Tony in-person event, and it's his first in-person event in over 2 years. So I feel like there's going to be some shit happening there.
Oh, it's going to be lit. Oh, I can't wait to hear about it. You need to do an episode and like debrief and tell us all about it.
100%. Finally, and last but not least, what is the single most important thing someone can do to live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life?
I started reading the book Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. Have you read this book?
I have it on my bookshelf.
Okay. It was on mine for like 3 months and then I felt called to pick it up and I'm so glad I did. I think the most important thing you can do is like listen intuitively to your body. How do you feel about a given thing? If there's any resistance or like not so great feelings, it's not for you. And for me at this point, it is either a fuck yeah or a fuck no.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate your time and the conversation that we've had today. I want to open the floor to you. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know you do have an upcoming launch here soon. So where can people get in contact? Where can they find out more info about that? Give us the plug.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple ways that we can connect and work together. So one is if anyone is in need of business coaching, corporate exit coaching, which obviously I know a little bit about, right? Or transformation coaching, like you're stuck, you have, head trash, all of that. You need like a third party to help you get unblocked. I would love to work with you with that. You can get in touch with me. Actually, I'll do something special just for your listeners. I wasn't planning on this, but let's do it. Go to alessiacitro.com/dropout, and you can book a free call with me. And then the other thing that I'm launching with a business partner is called the Illum Society. So what it is going to be a business foundations masterclass, because she and I figured out there's a major knowledge gap, especially with women in creating businesses. Did you know, Kevin, take a guess. What's the first year that a woman in the United States could get a business loan without a cosigner? Any guesses?
The way you set it up, I feel like it's going to be like 1985 or something.
1988. Yep.
Wow. Really? Yep. 88?
Yeah, 1988. So there's a lot of ground to cover to bridge this gap and help women really be set up to be entrepreneurs if that's what they want to do. So we're bringing in experts from every field that you need to have expertise in business. So a business lawyer to teach on LLCs, CPA, branding experts, like you name it, SEO, all of that. And so that will be launching in January. If you want to be first to know, we're going to start registration here pretty soon. You can visit illumsociety.com. And that link is in the show notes, hopefully, so that you can click and join our list and be the first to know. Oh, and actually, let me add to that. There's a referral code box. Use the code SYNC, SYNC, and we'll give you a little something special if you sign up.
Beauty. I will link to all that we talked about, all of the books and everything just discussed at kevinwathey.com/podcast. And Alessia, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you, and so grateful to be a guest. It was an honor.
We'll have a round two very shortly. Maybe a recap after Tony weekend, and we can dive into some of the specifics there.
Yes, I would love it.
Hey, it's Kevin here. And before I let you go, I wanted to let you know that the complete show notes for this episode, as well as any other, can be found at kevinwathey.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a short review on Apple Podcasts. I love reading the reviews, and they're often the tipping point in helping us book some very hard to reach guests. Now, if you want to or would like to receive a weekly email from me called the Weekly Mindful Memo, head over to kevinwathey.com/VIP to subscribe. By signing up, you'll receive exclusive behind-the-scenes access and be the first to know about upcoming episodes, retreats, and more direct to your inbox. Again, you can sign up to receive the weekly Mindful Memo by going to kevinwathey.com/VIP. Thank you for listening. Much love, and have a wonderful rest of your day.